Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled "Crazy Neighbor Stole My Mail." I've been going crazy wondering why I did not get this multi-$1,000 check I've been expecting for months. Yesterday I reached out to the company and they told me it was mailed 2 weeks ago and there is nothing more they can do. They told me to keep waiting. Mail here usually takes like 2 days. My rent check I mailed 3 days ago was already cashed. So where was my check? This morning at 9 AM there was a pounding on my door. Whoever it was did not say anything, no hello, it is XY, OP you home, no text or call, nothing, so I did not answer. I have 2 neighbors, one downstairs and one across. The one across always texts or calls instead of knocking. The downstairs neighbor told me before that she would never come upstairs under any circumstance because she hates the woman across from me and she is also disabled and has trouble with stairs. The banging happened again at around 12 and this time I heard my downstairs neighbor's voice. I opened the door for her and she was holding my letter. It was ripped open. She told me she went out at 5 AM this morning and when she came back at 6 AM, the letter was on the ground in the common area of the building, ripped open like this. The check was still inside. She told me she suspected the neighbor across from me saw that the letter was from an investment/banking company, opened it and realized they could not really do much with it and threw it on the ground. I immediately called the police. People always say opening another person's mail is a serious federal offense, plus this was a multi-$1,000 check that someone interfered with. Plus it was mailed 2 weeks ago, whoever took it held onto it for days. The police came and talked to both neighbors. The downstairs neighbor told her story, told the officer about how much she loved me and how she wants to protect me, how she will do anything for me. None of that is true. This lady despises me. The neighbor across, who also doesn't like me, told the officer she definitely did not and would not take or open my mail. In the past, this woman has found my mail in her box, texted me immediately and left the envelopes outside my door. And I've done the same for her. So I suspected the downstairs neighbor who supposedly discovered it. Either way, the officer said without proof there's nothing that can be done. He said to ask the landlord to put a camera in the common area. Though all of us have had items stolen from the common area, he is vehemently opposed to doing this. The only other thing the officer suggested was either getting a PO box, which is $70-something here, or downloading the post office app, which apparently shows you what mail you're getting that day. I am definitely looking into the app, otherwise it looks like nothing can be done. Neighbors can just take, open and keep my mail now. I guess the only way to end it is to spend the money for a PO box. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, I'm a little bit surprised by the ending of that story because I thought that you could definitely do something against a neighbor simply stealing your mail. If you would have been in this situation, what would you have done? I might have installed security cameras or something to catch the neighbor in the act. If you have any better ideas, please let us know in the comments. And in addition, I would really appreciate it if you could also post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support my channel. Thank you so much in advance. The next one is titled "Neighbor Lets Herself In While I Am Home Alone", posted by user Cerebral Cortisol. The absurdism of this occurrence still has me reeling, however I felt as though I should share as I find it slightly comical after the initial irritation had already passed. And by the way guys, what also fascinated me with this story is that OP is apparently not a native speaker, but her style of writing is really nice. Anyway, the cast is entitled "Neighbor, Female in her 40s, EN, me 16 female, M. I was, to my knowledge, alone and taking a shower as my parents had gone out to run an errand. I had the window in the shower slightly ajar, so I could hear when my parents pulled into the driveway and opened the front door. About 5 minutes later, I heard the front door open and shut. My first thought was, oh, my parents are home, and I continued my shower. Foolish as I am, I did not think twice about the fact that I did not hear the car pull in. I finished not long after. I walked out the bathroom fully clothed, thankfully, and began skipping to the living room, and then on the couch seated was a middle-aged woman who I definitely did not know, drinking some of my older sister's juice. Meaning she had been in our fridge unconsented. I was a bit too stunned to speak, not scared per se, as this woman looked harmless and appeared to be unarmed. I tried to reach for my phone on the dining table to call the police, but she stood up and blocked me. I could apprehend her if necessary, however, this woman easily looked like one of my mother's clients, and my mother has a tendency of letting people over without informing me beforehand, so I thought this could be another instance, so I was not overly concerned. The following conversation ensued. EN: "You just look like your mother." Me: "I look nothing like my mother." EN: "Oh, but you have your brother's eyes." Me: "I don't have a brother." EN: "Oh, then you're your father's daughter." Me: "You would know better than me. I have not seen him in 5 years." This was false, but I wanted to see if she knew this. EN: "Who are you?" Me: "That's my question. Why are you in my house?" "Your house? You're a child. Don't speak to me like that. Where are your parents?" No joke, this woman really had the audacity to say this. Me: "None of your concern. Kindly leave before I call the authorities." EN: "You, what kind of people raised such a snobby girl?" Me: "Excuse me? Mind your manners in my home. Move aside, please." I step around her and brush her with my shoulder as I grab my phone. EN begins banshee screaming that I have assaulted her by shoving her aside. I get my phone about to call my parents when I heard the garage door opened. I thank whatever lord there is and rush to the door. I run to my dad and started babbling about the strange woman who trespassed into our home while I was showering. Less than 20 minutes later, cops are pulling up to our home and EN is escorted to the station. My dad had told her to stay put if she didn't want him to press charges. We then find out she is our new neighbor and this was her attempt of getting to know us. I am mortified and express my opinion to my dad that he should press charges. EN begins banshee screaming again that he said he wouldn't. After a quick look at our home security cameras, our case was proclaimed valid and my dad is pressing charges. I don't know the mechanics or specifics of it all, but I'm happy he took my opinion into consideration. Edit: I see the same comment that the door was not locked, but it was. I swear I made sure everything was locked before I got in the shower. We have a very quiet lock on our front door, but a very creaky door itself, and that is why I heard the door open. I honest to God have no clue how she undid the lock. I'm sorry if I implied that I had left the door open, but no, that wasn't the case. My dad would never allow me. And honestly, Ripe Stars, even if OP left the door to her home open, there is no reason why a stranger should just walk into your home even if the door was open. Karen simply did not have the right to come in uninvited. If you would have been in OP's situation, what would you have done? Feel free to let us know in the comments. The next one is titled, "Don't Mess with a Grandma." It is a long one, but I love that moment of my life so much. I hope you will like it too. I was in a 7-year-long relationship with my partner. We lived together. I thought we loved each other. We were engaged. The wedding was mostly organized. We were doing great. He brought me flowers and we spent a lot of time together. So, when his parents suggested that we move in with them to save some money before the wedding to buy our own apartment, I agreed. But I had a serious conversation with my significant other. I told him that for me, a very independent person, moving into his home, his family, with completely different traditions and values than those I was used to, was a big step. I asked him to consider if he was absolutely and completely sure of us and our relationship, because if he has any doubts, I would rather stay on our own. A few months with his family can be stressful, conflicts may arise, and if something were to affect our relations, I would be left alone in his house with his family after every quarrel among us. And that would be really difficult for me. He hugged me, kissed me, lifted me on his arms and assured me that I absolutely don't have to worry about anything. Well, there would be no revenge story if everything turned out well. A few days after moving, my dear boy started disappearing for whole nights. He claimed to be seeing his childhood friends, drinking beer and playing video games. He did not answer his phone, he came home in the mornings, this has never happened before, and we started arguing. One time I left the house after such an argument and went to my beloved grandma to calm down and complain to someone close to me. After I got back, I sat down with him calmly and said that I did not mind him seeing his buddies, that it was never a problem in our relationship, it always happened, he went out alone or I went out alone, but we always had contact with each other. We let ourselves know what time we would be home, we were picking up phone calls and that we are to get married soon. We cannot start a marriage this way, that I'm only asking for honesty and contact with me. And I got the truth. He told me that he was actually seeing his adult student and that she lives in the same neighborhood as his parents. So he could not be with her that easily when we lived far away, and that now that they've spent more time together, he knows that he wants to marry her. And I can pack my bags and move out. I ran out of breath, he just turned and walked away, he went to work, leaving me alone at his house with this news. I realized he was manipulating me all the time. That for a long time he had no intention of continuing our relationship, but he did not want to move in with his parents alone as an adult man. His parents probably would not have agreed to that, so the whole situation was just to make it more comfortable for him to continue his affair and make sure without consequences. I packed up and ran away to my grandma, I had no one else. I was devastated. I started going to therapy, I threw myself into my work in order not to think and not to feel. It was a terrible time. However, it was going to get worse. He paid off my share of costs for organizing the wedding, but he used it all. The space I chose, the band that was supposed to play for us, flowers, menu, and a date. When I found out about it, I broke down again. Friends supported me as best as they could. My grandma was surprisingly calm, and you must know that she is an incredibly tough woman. One of the first women in my country to hold a high and very masculine position. A woman that has balls larger than 100 guys. And a sense of humor. When the wedding date came, my grandma told me to go get some wine with my friends, have a mega party and not think about it at all. I cried for days then, so she forced me out of the house. She forbade me to be alone, she said she had a doctor that day and could not be with me all the time. So I must go, have fun. Soon during the party, which I finally decided to go to, I started getting some messages from mutual friends. Something was happening and it had something to do with my grandma. So I called her and asked, "What did you do?" And she replied with a smile that she went to the church where my ex was getting married. "What?" I shouted. "Well," says grandma, "did you think that I would just let him get away with it?" I took a few deep breaths, silenced my friends, turned on the loudspeaker so that everyone could hear and said, "Tell me." "Well, I went to church. After all, no one from his family knows me there, and the church is a public place." I sat down, the poor little old lady in the front row, and began to pray feverishly. No one in his family had the heart to throw me out of there. And he, as a groom, was getting ready elsewhere. He only saw me when he stood under the altar, and then it was too late. Even if he pulled me out by force, I would lay down on the ground and start to cry. But he of course didn't. He knows me well and he knew what I am capable of. So well, he was standing there sweating more and more, and I was smiling at him widely. Up until the priest asked if anyone knew the reason why these two should not get married. "Come on, don't tell me you stopped the wedding," I asked, totally shocked. No, I did not want to do this to the girl. I'm always on the side of women, you know that. But it was enough that he did not know that. So at this exact point of the ceremony, I moved slightly, as if I wanted to get up, and he almost pooped himself. I thought he was going to pass out. He stuttered till the end of the ceremony and sweat was pouring down his forehead like crazy, because he didn't know what else I can come up with. He had barely stammered that he wanted to marry her. And after the ceremony, I stuck my tongue out at him, smiled and left without any of the guests noticing anything. At this point, me and my friends were rolling on the floor laughing. As soon as I could catch my breath, I asked, "But why did you do all this?" And she said, "Because you will never have good memories of that day. So I wanted to leave him with the bitter taste and knowledge that if you act like an a-hole, you might have a suit full of crap out of your own guilt and fear." I call it justice. Oh, how I love my grandma. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would agree, that is probably one of the best grandma revenge stories we have ever read. You simply don't mess with grandmas, and in this case, their granddaughters. And the next one is titled, Stop Wasting My Time. Backstory: I have worked a lot of jobs in my life and been turned down from a few. One such place that turned me down was a car dealership. After a stint with a certain long-distance phone company as a telemarketer, the sales bug hit me and I wanted to sell cars. I knew there was money to be had and wanted a piece of it, plus I'm a people person, so I would get to interact with people on a daily basis. One thing to note about me is that I'm a male and have long hair. I don't like having short hair, I have no self-esteem with short hair, I hate it. I went around to several dealerships one day, talking with management, trying to get a feel for the industry. One place in particular sold Volvos. I ended up talking with Tommy, the sales manager, for a bit, and it turned into an impromptu interview. I spoke with him and John, who was the highest ranking salesman there, or some other BS, I don't remember, it was like 17 years ago. Anyway, I ended up sticking around for a couple of hours during these interviews and we talked about cars, the market, expectations, experience, etc. After a couple of hours we got to the dress code. Now, I was wearing slacks, dress shoes and a collared button-up shirt, and my hair was in a tail and multiple hair ties in it to keep it neat. I also had some product on the top/sides to prevent any flyaways. My hair was brought up only briefly. I was asked if I was willing to cut my hair and I answered honestly I would for a certain amount of money. I knew it was commission-based sales, but I made that decision a while ago about my hair and then we moved on to other topics. And by the way guys, I'm not sure, but is that common that people will ask you in a job interview if you are willing to change your hairstyle? I mean, okay, if you have like a super unique hairstyle, but that seems a little bit far-reaching for me. Anyway, after around 4 hours or so, I am sent on my way and told to be there at 8 AM the next morning. If I was late, they would send me home. Sweet, hired. So I went home and started getting prepped. Called my brother to ask advice since he had been in the industry for a while and got advice. The next day I show up at 7:55 AM and I am told they are in a meeting, just have a seat and wait. They don't get out of the meeting until closer to 10 AM and Tommy sees me and tells me they did not talk about it yet and to go home they would give me a call. Now, I've been in sales and I know how things work. I knew what that meant but decided to play along. I go home, waited until the next day, and then called. Tommy got on the phone. "Yeah, we are looking for someone a little more company-oriented. Thank you for your time." And hung up. I knew it was because I would not cut my hair, and I did not care. I did not care that they wanted me to cut my hair, and I did not care that they did not hire me, because I would not cut my hair unless my requirements were met. That did not bother me. What bothered me was that he wasted my time and made me believe I got hired and then hung me out to dry. I'm the type that stews on some things and dreams up many different ways to get revenge, but never acts on them. Well, I had my chance a few years later. In the US, when you fill out a W-2, or is it W-4, I always confuse them, at a new job, you can elect to have extra money withheld from your check via federal or state taxes. I have always elected to do this because I prefer getting money from taxes versus having to send money in. So I did just that and saved the extra amount every year. Then I got married, had kids and got more money back. Child tax credits are nice, but not a reason to justify having kids. Somewhere around 2012, after I had been driving truck for a few years and making/saving more money, we were looking at getting a newer vehicle. We still lived in the area and then we drove by that dealership and the memories came flooding back. I had not told her about that because I had honestly forgotten about it, so I spilled the beans and then we concocted a plan that was so devious, so insidious, so deceitful, so I'm kidding. I'm just looking at Theosaurus right now. It was a plan of revenge and vengeance though. I would love to say that I had saved up 100k over the previous few years, but I didn't. Getting married, having kids, etc. tends to cost money. We did have a decent amount saved up and were about to get a settlement from a lawsuit. I sued the former employer for retaliation, so we had about 35k to spend. First I called to see if Tommy still worked there, and he did. This meant the revenge could possibly take place. I called the local PD, informed them that I would be carrying a large amount of cash on me to purchase a vehicle, and wanted to know about having an escort, which is $30 per hour for an officer, to provide private security while in uniform. Awesome. I went to the bank, spoke with the manager, informed them I would be making a very large cash withdrawal and then depositing that cash right back in the same account a few hours later the same day. I did not give specifics, but I did inform him that it was a revenge scheme that involved the illusion of making a large purchase. She said, "It's your money, you can do whatever you want with it." I got a nice suit, not one of the ones from my MC story, wore my hair down and went to the dealership. I got approached by someone almost immediately and requested Tommy. Due to word of mouth from a friend of mine, Tommy comes over, and if he recognizes me, he did not show it. Probably not, since it had been close to a decade later. We get to talking and I tell him I wanna buy a Volvo to surprise my wife. It's her all-time favorite car, very true. I also tell him that I have a $30K budget to pay in cash. I specify that it would be cash, no financing, no check, no money order, cold hard cash. I could see his eyes dancing. I ask if he is commission based since he's the manager, and he says he gets a small salary, but he is still expected to sell and he does get commission. He shows me a few here and there, but I insist on a red one. So he shows me this cherry red XC90 with the works. Dual power leather seats, CD player, moonroof and a DVD system to boot. Sticker price was $37K and I told him I was not paying over $30K. Tax, title and fees out the door for it. He said he'd see what he could do with the owner, who was called Bill, since it was a trade-in and a 6-year-old car. He leaves to talk to the owner and I'm just waltzing around looking at other cars. He comes back with someone else in tow. It is Bill. We get to talking about the price and he is willing to go down a little, but not to my price point. I sighed and told him that due to the issues that particular vehicle had, I felt it was not worth what he wanted. I had done some research and my brother told me all about the recall on certain Volvos, why they were recalled and the complaints from other owners, crash tests results, etc. Bill's eyes got a little wide with that. Apparently I knew my cars, or rather my brother did, so he left to check some numbers, and when he came back he was willing to part with it for exactly $30K, but not a penny less. I said that was fine, to get whatever paperwork he needed done, as I needed to go to the bank to make the withdrawal and would return the next day. I requested a notary to be present with the title so it could be notarized in my name and I could go switch the title the same day. I contacted the police, hired an officer for private security and had them meet me at the bank. The officer they sent was someone I went to school with who was called Mike. He questioned why I would not just write a check and I told him he would see why when we go to the dealership. So there I am, being escorted by police into the dealership with $30,000 in cash. I go in, ask for Tommy, and we go to Bill's office instead. Tommy is there and someone else who is introduced as the notary. They have all of the necessary paperwork and I insist we go over it before I sign anything. Standard stuff for a used car, bought as is with no warranty implied, hold them harmless, etc. Time for some real acting now. As we are talking, I start to give a confused look while looking at Tommy. He asks if I'm okay and I say that he looks familiar and I've been trying to place him since yesterday. I ask if he has worked anywhere else and Bill speaks up and says, Tommy has been the sales manager here at, business name, for 15 years. My eyes go wide. Wait a minute, you were working here back in 02? I think it was 2002, so I'm saying it is. Tommy, yes. Me, I remember you now. I had an interview with you back in 2002 when I was trying to break into car sales. I went through 4 hours of interviews with you and John. I'm sure you don't remember me. It was a long time ago. Tommy, of course I remember you. I remember the hair. Me, do you remember not hiring me because I would not cut my hair? His eyebrows arch ever so slightly. Bill, what do you mean? I relate the entire encounter. Bill, I'm sorry you had that experience. We do have an image to maintain and men are expected to dress professional. Me, do you have any women on the sales floor, Bill? Bill, we do. Me, do they have long hair? Bill? Tommy, I don't see how that should factor into you buying a car. What is this about? Me? You led me to believe that I was starting a job here, which is what I wanted. You wasted my time, and this time it was my fault. I wasted my time. I knew that I knew you, but I could not place you. Bill, this money, I pull out the cash, is now going back into my account and I'll be purchasing a vehicle somewhere else. I refuse to spend money at a business that would do this to potential employees. I put the cash away. So, sorry for wasting your time as well. I get up to leave, the officer follows me and Bill and Tommy try to get me to see reason, and I ask the officer to please inform them that I want no further contact with them. He relays that and they shut up. We get back to the bank, and after I deposit the cash, Mike tells me I should have moved on and just forgot about it. I shrugged and said maybe, but Tommy is going to have to deal with Bill now, since 30,000 in cash just walked out of the building. I asked if I did anything illegal, and he said not that he could think of. I said, okay then, thank you for your time, officer, I'm releasing you from your obligation to me. I have no idea what the fallout, if any, there was. I imagine there had to be some. I mean, having that much cash just walk out of your business? Yeah, I know in the long run it did not amount to much for the profit of the business, but it definitely hit them. Tommy in particular, since he was going to get commission that day and that paycheck. And that is my story of petty/regular revenge that cost a sales manager a $30,000 sale. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.